Welcome. It's the penultimate FIH Hockey Women's World Cup show, and I'm delighted that our two regular guests are with us today to digest all the action we've seen over the past few days. So it's a big welcome to Jill Bone. Hi, Jill. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Have you got over the disappointment yet, or are you still slightly in mourning?
Yeah, slightly. Lots to talk about, but yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, sure is. Dan Strange is here, our commentator extraordinaire, who's been watching every single piece of action and getting the predictions out on his Twitter feed every day. Hi, Dan.
Yeah, hello. It's been good fun so far. It's been good fun predicting it all, and what a tournament we're seeing.
We absolutely are. I mean, just before the show started, we were all talking, and Jill, I wonder, if you should come back to some comments you made off air about this being such a fast-paced and exciting World Cup. I mean, we are seeing some tremendous standards of play, aren't we?
Yeah, it's going so fast, and teams like, teams like New Zealand and Australia, but that won, but that had such a difficult preparation for that tournament. And playing that level of excitement, I think it's great for women's hockey.
Yeah, and there's been some absolutely brilliant games. We're going to talk about the quarterfinals to start with, because they've been the matches that have been on everybody's minds for the last few days. So, I mean, first of all, Dan, I'll come to you. Jill just mentioned New Zealand. At the start, I don't think we knew what to expect of the New Zealand team. But it was slightly back to business as usual when Germany took to the pitch against them. So do you want to just talk us through your thoughts on that New Zealand-Germany game?
Yeah, I thought New Zealand did well to keep Germany to just one goal in the end. It didn't. If you've listened to our show and you've followed me on Twitter through this World Cup, and I've not in any way been being rude about New Zealand hockey. I have so much respect for the programs, and I've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of the Kiwi players and coaches and management over my career. I think the fact that they stepped up, made it to a quarterfinal, and to lose by one goal to Germany, who we all know how good Germany are, and Germany have had a relatively not a normal run into this tournament, because they've played their youth team quite a lot and they've mixed things up. And Jana said earlier on in the show, or previously in the show, that they'd had quite a short run in. But we know how good Germany are. Germany had already mixed it with the Dutch in the competition. I think for New Zealand, they're always going to, I said it before, I thought if they came up against a really good team who kind of slightly put them in their place, they might struggle. Lorenz is continuing to be one of the standout players in the World Cup, and her form just keeps getting better and better and better. It's no great loss to lose to Germany. They're such a good team. I think all credit to New Zealand, how they've gone through the tournament to get to the quarterfinal and lose by one goal is a fair go, really, with the running they've had.
Yeah, I don't know whether you managed to see any of that game, Jill, but for me, it just looked as though New Zealand had just run out of ideas a little bit. Germany looked to have an awful lot left in the tank, actually, at the end of the match.
Yeah, and also before the game, I saw also the Germany game against South Africa, and I was like, oof, that's going to be a long tournament for Germany, because I think they look quite slow, and maybe also it's you have to have that game in the tournament to be able to bounce back. But I think Germany is a team that's always there when it matters. Yeah. They have that thing in their culture. There's like, when it matters, they just perform. But they did great.
Yeah.
Sarah, can I just say one thing about the Kiwi team on this as well?
Yeah.
You look at the players the younger players that went to Tokyo, who have now played in the World Cup and made it to a quarterfinal and done their team so proud. What a difference that's going to make come Paris.
Yeah.
Because this is a team now who in 2 years' time, there's not going to be the excuses around COVID and things like that. But you're going to have players who are, hitting the middle of their career with quite a quick Olympics followed by quite a quick World Cup under their belts. That's going to be a different team as well. Sorry, just to add that in, sort of looking ahead at the future.
You're absolutely right. And the other thing I was just going to mention as well is, of course, they've got the Commonwealth Games in a couple of weeks' time as well.
I forgot about that.
Now, that of course, could go one of two ways for them, because it could be that actually this young team has been away from home for quite a long time now, and because of COVID, they're not used to that, so that could play on them. Or it could be that they go to the Commonwealth Games boosted by the performance they've had here, and ready to show the world what they can do. So that's going to be a really interesting thing. And Shay did say on a previous show, for the New Zealand team, the Commonwealth Games is actually a really, really, really big thing. They'll be interesting. Jill, we all watched. Belgium came so close, didn't they? They really, really did put on a really quite fabulous performance against the Netherlands. Unfortunately for Belgium, the Netherlands edged it 2-1.
Yeah, it's hard. I think also what's something really impressive in this World Cup, and I think for the next tournament, like Dan mentioned, is like the gap between the first two teams and I would say top 8 is really, really close. And that's going to be awesome for us to watch as supporters. But yes, in that game, I think also like if in the first 15 minutes, it's 2-0 for Holland, I think would have been quite logical. But I think the goalkeepers, both of them, did some amazing saves to keep them in the game. That's also the problem, is that sometimes you play against Holland and you lose by 1 and you feel that you're really close. But in the end, you just, they're just good. And I think the first goal they score, it's just awesome piece of play, and it's really great. And I think, Belgium had a couple of chances in the last dying minutes of the game when you have 2 corners. One is not well given, the other one not well stopped. It just details that in the end, those are mistakes that Holland doesn't make. But for the first time, I think I've seen Holland doing a lot of basics mistakes, missed drives, missed pass. So I was like, okay, now maybe it's our time. If they give us that much, you need to take it at this fullest. But they tried, they compete, and it was really close. And I was really proud to cheer for Belgium a couple of days back.
Yeah. Psychologically, I mean, you'll both have opinions on this. How will it impact the Netherlands, knowing that they've got teams now snapping at their heels? Because for so long, they've been pretty supreme, haven't they? I mean, even though they lost in Rio, they still really should have won, if we're honest. They've just been head and shoulders, and now perhaps they're only a next breath apart. What are your thoughts on that, Dan? Is it going to play on them psychologically?
Well, being a Brit, Jugsy, you're not meant to say that the Dutch are meant to have or should have won at 2016. I think
I'm just being honest.
That's almost treason. You get put in the tower for that. I think it's crucial for the sport. We've spoken about how the pace of this World Cup and how good the World Cup's been. It's crucial for any sport not to have monopoly. You've seen it. You've seen it in football in the UK back in the sort of 90s and early thousands. Manchester United were like a monopoly under Alex Ferguson. It was good if you're a Man United fan. It wasn't really great if you're a football fan, as it were. I think in this way, unless you're a diehard Dutch fan, you wanted to see other teams step up and come through, which is why coming into the tournament the way Argentina were playing was so exciting. I think there's been a levelling out in terms of the Dutch quality here. I haven't quite seen that sort of flowing, constant aggression of hockey, and in that really, it's sort of a light aggression, if you will. They flow around the pitch. They almost, they float across the pitch, but they're constantly looking for that way forward. There have been more errors in this Dutch team than I've seen in a while, but equally, I do think that's matched by the quality rising. It's such a positive thing for the sport in a way, unless you're Dutch, yes. Which then you're just go. But equally, I think the Dutch would be pragmatic about it and go, we've dominated in real terms since 2010, bar a blip, which was 2016. They've had a really strong time of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say the same thing.
If you love sport, you want to watch a final of the World Cup that ends up in 3-3 or 4-4 and not at 6-0. And it's great for Ireland what they did, and I think it's awesome for their sport and stuff like that. But you want excitement at every game, and that's what that World Cup for the first time actually brings. You have Spain, Australia yesterday. You cannot predict the score. As before, you could say like, wow, it's going to be more or less like this, or probably Holland is going to win like what? By 2 or 3 goals against Belgium, stuff like that. And now it's the excitement as a neutral supporter that you want to go and watch a semi-final, and you want to go and buy tickets for the final because it's going to be awesome and you don't really know who you're going to face.
It's also, I think, really important for the Dutch to be pushed because, complacency can set in if you haven't got people pushing at your heels. What on earth do you do to innovate and push and change things? So let's talk next about one of the teams that we've tipped to really push Netherlands to the very end. Argentina. I mean, they made it quite hard work against England, or England made it hard work for them. Dan, come to you. What were your thoughts on that match?
I was surprised Argentina only scored one. What lovely, clever. I mean, if you're going to score against Maddie Hinch and you know that you can't just belt the ball at her and it's going to go through, to score the goal they did, Granato, tip in, and Hinch just nothing she could do at all. Very clever goal. I thought England to start with, I thought Holly Pern-Webb had a very good game for England in terms of her marking. It was very good, cutting. I remember Vicky Granato off at one point at the top of the circle. One of my concerns from England in the first quarter was I thought their distribution was quite slow. They weren't really finding their players in the midfield, which obviously doesn't allow them to bring in the likes of Hannah Martin or Tess Howard further up the pitch. And Tess Howard is having to drop very far back later on in the game. But I thought England incredibly bravely fought right to the end. I mean, Sophie Hamilton was so close to making it 1-1. But can we just look at the goalkeeping in this tournament? You've got 8, maybe 10 goalkeepers in the world that you could interchange into any of the teams, and the teams would be happy to have them. You know, you've got so much quality. Belensucci, what's she now, 36? She'd pretty much been sat on the backboard, not doing anything for bits of the match because, you know, Argentina had a lot of possession. And we've seen that in other matches in the competition where goalkeepers have suddenly had to do something. I think Savita had one the other day as well. But with it, she stepped up. She made 2 saves in a row where England's penalty corners haven't looked particularly potent through the competition, and she saved it. I actually didn't think the height was brilliant on that penalty corner. The Hamilton chance was, you know, it was just point blank and she saved it well. Hamilton potentially could have put it away better, but that came upon her very quickly as well. It's a difficult chance. I actually thought a really gripping quarter-final, that one. Probably the better team won, but it was a really strong quarter-final.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right about the goalkeepers. I mean, Jill, Belgium are blessed with goalkeepers because they were able to switch at will, weren't they? Whether it was Eleanor or Aisling in the goal. What are your thoughts on that whole thing of switching a goalkeeper every quarter at the moment? Is it good for the team or not? Dan's shaking his head. Jill, what are your thoughts?
For me, not. I would hate it personally. I think you don't train 8 times a week to play 30 minutes. But it seems to work. I think it has been also in the last years where I was still playing with switching quarters and then at one point take a decision about who was going to play. I think it's hard on the goalkeeping too, but then you have to make the other one plays, otherwise she doesn't play. But now you have the Pro League, you have so many games. For me, you should ask a goalkeeper, but for me, you just have to pick one. I think when you see for example, with Maddie Hinch and Belensucci, they became such legend of their team, such a leadership. And I think the way they lead their defense is something, it's something the defenders get used to it, and to change goalkeeper, it's another way of communicating for sure. If I was them, I would hate it personally, but I know it's going quite well with the Belgium team. I think they played both really well in the Pro League or now in the World Cup. So, and I love them both. So I wouldn't be able to pick, but that's not my job, thankfully. But I think the goalkeeping is that voice that lead the team, and it would be easier to have maybe to pick, to just make a decision.
I mean, we'll talk about Belensucci in a bit more detail in a few minutes, but Dan, you were shaking your head as well. And actually the commentators, because Charlie Broom is or was a goalkeeper, and he said exactly the same thing. He would hate to be taken off, but what are your thoughts on that?
I know Simon Mason would say the same thing as well, because I think I once talked to Simon about a match which I realised he'd been on the bench in, and I gave him a bit of stick about that, and he just looked at me and went, hated being on the bench, couldn't stand it, let's move on. And it was like, I think the difference with Belgium is, and Jill made a great point about the Pro League and the amount of games that creates. The difference now is people used to do it in tournaments to give their goalkeepers time. You know, if it was a as it were lesser tournament to try and build their pitch time up. I think the difference with Belgium is they got two incredibly evenly matched goalkeepers. Other countries can't do that. Argentina don't do it because they've got a standout goalkeeper. England don't do it because they've got a standout goalkeeper. Personally, well, commentators don't always like it because sometimes if the goalkeeper's got the same colour pads on and you haven't had time to look at what number it is, you might, you know, it's been known that occasionally they can make errors, especially if they're doing it remotely off tube. In terms of focus, I just think it's... I think for consistency, it comes down to that. I think your defenders, your whole defensive structure, as Jill said, they want that voice and they almost want that consistent voice. And if you've had to just step off the bench after 15 minutes, you haven't always got that.
Yeah. I mean, and practically as well, down in Terrassa, that goalkeeper stepping off the pitch is going to be absolutely soaking, aren't they, with sweat? And then to sit there and be ready to come back on again, that's got to be an uncomfortable experience. That's just my own personal feeling on that one. Okay, last quarter final, Australia, Spain. I mean, that had me on the edge of my seat for the entire match because I always expected Spain to sneak a goal. And I mean, in my predictions beforehand, I went so far as to say that I thought Jimenez would actually score an amazing goal, 30 seconds from the end. Jill, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been quite impressed by Australia, actually, even during the pool games. So they're at the good moment. They score a corner at the good moment. And we've seen also in this World Cup how important the penalty corner is. And now, as before, you had Holland that had a great PC and penalty corner, and then a couple of teams more. But for the rest, it was quite not their strongest weapon. And now you can see that you need to score them at the right moment. Yeah. And I think that also at Spain, their penalty corner is not that great for the moment. They're missing a bit of that slip push that just makes you score a goal when you need the most. That's what Australia did.
The other thing, I thought the two styles of play were very, very interesting because Australia playing the ball around the pitch, up the sides, Spain were just trying to do these little dinky balls through the middle, and they were getting cut out. And Dan, you watched the game. What did you think about it?
I wasn't surprised Spain got knocked out. I was disappointed Spain got knocked out from a keep the host in the tournament as long as you can point of view. They're one of those teams that they obviously had a great World Cup in 2018, but I think they were very much sort of punching above their weight at that point. I think now they're a stronger team and they're a more consistent team, and it almost looks, well, it is worst result on paper in history. Yeah. I can't remember exactly where they go to in terms of the automatic draw. I saw England drop down to fourth, drop down to eighth automatically, which surprised me, I'll be honest, but that's just the makeup of how it's all composed. In terms of Spain here, Spain through the Pro League have been a touch lightweight up front. They've got the ability to create. They are slightly inconsistent, and I've had conversations with them about this. They're slightly inconsistent in terms of putting the ball away. We've seen Laura Barrios scored a lovely goaler in the World Cup, but sort of where she fell over, well, not fell over, she dived and scored and had no time. And I think that was always going to be their issue. I think when in those crucial games where you have to score a goal, they need 4 chances to score 1, whereas Australia took their chance. Renee Taylor took the chances. The second drag flick wasn't particularly high over the defender's head, but it made it. Charlie made a point on commentary. In fact, I think it was Eki made a point on commentary. It was kind of right on the backhand of I think it was Icart on the line, where she couldn't work out how to hold her stick properly to deflect it. That makes a difference. That's clinical at the end of the day, and that's what you have to be as Argentina have been, as Germany have been, and in the end also the Dutch have been. You've got to be clinical in the close games, and Australia have managed it, Spain haven't. But that said, another team, Spain, that leave the World Cup in looking to the future with a lot of excitement, I'd imagine. They've got a lot to bring to the game over the next few years because they've still got time on their side as well. Yeah.
Did you get the feeling that this could have been Gigi Oliver's swan song from both of you? I mean, she looked so desperate at the end and she really, really, really wanted to drive her team forward. I felt this was a player who was probably thinking, yeah, this could well be it. I mean, Jill, do you know her? Do you know her personally?
Yeah, I was playing in Spain in 2006. So I went to watch a World Cup there in Madrid. That brings a lot of, and she was playing her first World Cup.
Yeah.
As a 15-year-old or something. She was playing mid. she was already awesome. She played in Belgium a couple of years, and I think she's one of the greatest player of the history of her sport. She's extremely clever, and yeah, I just love to watch her play, and it would be really sad that if she would stop. But I think that she, I hope she would try to go to Paris, because I think she's leading a team that is quite young, and I could feel watching Spain playing in this World Cup. It was a lot of stress in their game, and it was not enough composure on the ball, and she has that obviously with all her experience, but they're missing quite some games. I think maybe a bit of experience, a bit of calm. I don't know if being the host of the tournament brought extra stress, but yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting team because they're training really hard. I know how much they're training. Really young team, and if they have Gigi Oliva as a leader, I think it's going to be interesting in the next few tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the tension was really palpable with Begonia Garcia. She so wanted to score a goal, and I think she then got carded, and she looked distraught, beyond distraught. And I thought, wow, this is a team that's really holding some tension there.
Yeah.
I think your Lucia Jimenez prediction got downfallen when she got clattered on the hand early on. As it happened, I remembered your prediction. I thought, that's gone. I can't see her scoring with a hand injury now. But just going back to Gigi Oliver, your comment about, is this her swan song? The other, and this is not a rumour mill I'm starting, it's just something I noticed in both their interviews, because both these players got interviewed at the end of the matches. They're both exactly the same age. Is both Gigi and Holly Pern-Webb looked incredibly emotional to me. Now, they are both heart on the sleeve, out and out, talismanic, if that's the word, players for their team. And was it just that raw emotion of the amount of pressure they've been under coming out? And obviously Holly's got the Commonwealth Games to come anyway. But I was looking on just with a bit of okay, that's interesting. Yeah. And looking at their age, they're both 31, another 2 years, 33. It's not unbeknown to be 33 and going to Olympics by any stretch at all. But is it for both of them the swan song? It could be, and that's what I say. I'm not starting a rumour mill, and feel free, either of them, to let me know if that's not the case, because I'd be delighted to commentate on them in the future. And let's hope we are.
But one player we do know, this is definitely the end of her career, is of course Belensucci. And the emotion was all over her face. But as we know, Jill, even the greatest players do have to retire from international scene at some point. Just tell us, what is it like when you step away? Because it must feel, do you feel bereft when you step away from the game? Do you feel...
Well, me, was after a huge disappointment, obviously. So it's quite difficult, because you have for 12 years that all your life is dictated by a program, and then all of a sudden it's taken away, or it's not there anymore. But at one point you're also like, there is room for something else, and it's been great. But it's also it's extremely intense, and takes a lot of energy, and it's awesome. It's compensated by the awesomeness of doing it, obviously, and you miss it every day, I think. When you watch a game and you watch the national team playing, you look it with other eyes. I think, I don't know if you say that in English, but there is a time for everything, and if we would have been singers of stuff, we would have sing probably until we were 80, because it's something you love to do.
Yeah.
But at one point, there is another generation coming up and knocking on the door, and you still love the game, but your body and your energy that you have and that you want to give to that, it's just becoming less. The passion remains, the love of the game remains, but the reality steps in.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, what Gigi, if she is retiring, and we're not fueling that rumour mill, she can follow your footsteps, can't she, and set up her own hockey camps to bring the next generation through.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think it's really important to have a generation that is inspired by people that love the game so much, that I don't think there is much more people on earth that love hockey as much as I do, that loves to share it with young kids and especially young girls, and to get them to love whatever they get. If they get in the national team, it's great. If they play in 5th division in their club, it's great. But to make them love and learn to love the game we all love here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one team, just talking briefly about the teams that have departed the tournament now. One team that we know is making a real impact on the community back home is India. They're now heading to the Commonwealth Games. Dan, India they're going to be disappointed by this World Cup performance, so aren't they?
Yeah, they will be. And if I say rightly so, I'm not sat here actually really being critical on them. I think the level that they set themselves now brilliantly is they will look at this, or they will come into this going, we want to be semi-finalists at the World Cup. That's the bar we set. We set it at Tokyo. They were gutted. Look at how Savita was when they didn't win the bronze against Great Britain. I've had conversations with Siobhan Ryan and with other people about this. She almost took it all on her shoulders.
Yeah.
But you look at the quality of the player and the person, because that's shining through with her captaining. And it's all progression and growing and improving. I think here, I said it on the show the other week, I think they peaked against Argentina in Rotterdam. I think they've settled into a groove without Rani, because they had that time where it was like, is Rani going to come back in? And then she didn't. And then, so they got into that, and that was okay. And that's fine. The one thing that I think is superb, and they've had it with Siobhan Ryan and they've continued it with Yannicka, is the level and the quality of the coaching, not just in terms of the international game, but how both those coaches look at the person and develop the people. Whether you're winning medals or not, you're looking at who you're sending out the end of the programme, if that makes sense, into the world. Whether they've got Olympic gold medals around their neck or not is vital. And listening to Yannicka's team talk at the end of their match the other day, where she was just going, you can be so proud of yourselves, you can be really proud of this. They've got a fantastic person in place to keep guiding them. They've now just got to refresh for the Commonwealth, because it's a long trip, this one. They've been away from home a long time, and they've just got to jump over to Birmingham and carry on in 2.5 weeks' time. And that's going to take managing and balancing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, South Africa and Canada have also got the challenge of the Commonwealth Games coming up as well. My question, before we move on to predictions for the next for the semi-finals, my question really is about China. What happens to them now? Because at the moment we don't know when their next big tournament is, and we've seen a lot of progression being made. But what will happen? I mean, Jill, there's going to be a break now for China, isn't there? With no real target in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I've been through that. When we 2 times didn't qualify for the Olympics, we had 2 years with no tournament. I think with professional, when you're a professional athlete, you need to deal with what's coming and to take it as an opportunity. You have now, when we didn't qualify for Rio, for example, we had 2 years also in the shadow of the Red Lions, because they were going for gold in Rio.
Yeah.
And us, obviously, we weren't really in the picture of the media already, but there was there was nothing to talk about. It gave us an opportunity to rebuild and to get better and to work hard, actually in the shadow of other countries. And we came back and we won silver at the European Cup. So whatever opportunity you have, you need to take it as an opportunity. They will have time to train, to get better with a great coach. And also, I don't know everything about how things are going with the Chinese team and Chinese Federation. But if you get an opportunity like this or a moment like this, take it as an opportunity to work harder where no one can see you also.
Yeah. And of course, it will give Alice some time to learn to speak Chinese as well, which will be great.
If she does it in 2 years.
And in if their next match is the Pro League, because of course the Asian Games has been postponed for now, 10th of February, who do they play? Australia. I actually think it's also a bigger thing that Spain and India women aren't in the Pro League next year, because off the back of this, having had such a good season this year, that leaves them with that sort of the impact they've made. And now it's like wait and see. But this is the quality of the game now. This is how this is stepped up. It's great and not great in equal measure. For China, as you say, there's a waiting game, but who's going to is Alison still going to be coaching them? We wait to see if that's the case. Hopefully, because she's made huge strides in a very small time.
Just one very, very quick point before we move on to predictions. It was very nice to see 3 head coaches who are female at the World Cup. That has to be a first, with Trini Powell as well as Yannicka and Alison. Okay, we've got Germany versus Argentina. We've got Netherlands versus Australia. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I've had to change all my predictions because when I did my 7-year-old's wall chart at the start, which is part of the fun, I had the wrong information in front. And it wasn't my fault. You can back me up on this, Sarah. It wasn't my fault. I had the wrong information. I've been since informed that it's the other way around in terms of who plays who, because I was reading what I believed was to be true. I'm still sticking with Argentina win it. Who's there with them? That's the difficult one. Jill, who do you think?
Argentina.
I think so. You're both consigning Germany to a bronze medal match.
Yeah, but for me, and with Germany, you never know. So it's not, it can go their way and stuff like that. But I think Argentina, for what they showed now, is a bit too fast for Germany for the moment. That's what I think. It's going fast. It's physical. They're extremely fit. They train like crazy. I've once talked to the coach about the physical program. It's like unreal. I think they're prepared for this game, and you can see, like in 2010, the emotions that they show when they score a goal. Like you have girls that's been playing 200 caps and they score a goal and they have tears in their eyes.
Yeah,
that means something. There's something going on.
There is a huge hunger, isn't there? There is such a huge hunger for this, I think.
Yeah.
They've been so settled though this year since Tokyo, where it's kind of was it Jill, would you say it was a surprise they made the Tokyo final? I don't think it was a surprise, but I don't think they were necessarily expecting to beat the Dutch in Tokyo. But instead of going, wow, we got the silver, they went, right, we got the silver this time. Our next aim is 12 months' time. And they've it was almost like they just took another step along the pavement. It was nothing more than that into the Pro League and then onto this is how the Argentinians got about it. In terms of the other semi-final, most open game of the World Cup so far, I think, because Australia have got the defensive unit that could stop the Dutch if the Dutch aren't firing, which they're not as dangerous as they have been in previous years at the moment. That's not to say they haven't got the weapons, but, Matler and Velton are superb. But I can't call that one, and for me to say that, but I'm sure I will by the time the game comes around. I'll put something daft up on Twitter, but it's wide open.
Yeah, I would say Holland. I think you have the leaders that are stepping up when it matters, and you have also the younger ones like Freke Moes. I played with her for 4 years, and she's just so good. And now that she scored the winning goal against Holland, against Belgium in the quarterfinals. And, the younger ones that are going to step up and they're growing in the tournament. And, I think they're going to have, like, that games of reference that you say, like, that was the game where now we can build on, I think.
So based on that, it's a Germany-Australia final then?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly what was said.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we have got those matches to look forward to, and when we next meet, we will actually know who the world champion is, which is going to be fantastic. My very, very final question to you: those 4 teams, Australia, Germany, Netherlands, and Argentina. I've picked 4 players, one from each team that I think is going to make a huge difference, and I'm going to rattle them off now, and I'm going to see if you guys have got anything different to say. So, Pia Martens is going to make an impact for Germany. Zandervold is going to keep doing what she does. Vicky Granato is going to be the Granato that really makes the big difference. And Rosie Malone is going to score a goal. Dan, what do you reckon?
Maria Granato is going to score a goal in the final for Argentina, but I think Vicky will have a huge say. Rosie Malone might score. I don't disagree. Do you know what? I think Matler's going to have a say. I think Matler's going to suddenly come big. Jean de Waard will keep doing what she does because she makes the Dutch tick and she's vital. I think Matler is due one of those games where she just imposes herself on teams. Pia Martens, maybe. I still think Lorenz is one of the top 2 players in this World Cup so far for me. And I think if the Germans do make it to the final, it will have a big, or she will have had a big hand in it. Pia Martins probably will as well, because she may have been on the end of some assists from Lorenz to score the goals, or, you know, taking her chances. For me, the one name at the top of the tree in terms of individuals so far in this World Cup has been Maria Granato, though.
Okay, final word to you, Jill. Who is going to be the star of this show?
I think it's going to be Belen Suchi for Argentina. I think in these kind of games, like, Argentina is probably going to score a goal, but how many they get against is going to be important, like on which way they're going to put the defensive mind on that game, because you're playing a team that's going to score every little chance they have. So how well they're going to defend on, I think it's going to make the difference. I would say, Nikki Lorenz on the other side, like, how is she going to lead her team to keep on going, and because, you know, they're going to have to be under a lot of pressure, a lot of speed, and how calm is she going to stay, how well is she going to lead her team is going to make a difference, I think. Malone can score a goal. I think she's been doing great. And I think for Holland, I would put money on a duo of Eva de Goede and Liede bij Welten. I think those are the moments they still play for, and Welten is going to do great, I think.
The big stage players. Well, thank you, both of you. Enjoy the forthcoming matches, and we will speak when the World Cup champion is crowned.